Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, do's and dudettes. Today we have the good fortune of speaking with Mr. Lou, Curly, and Mika. This is the first episode of our Black Men Real Talk episode. And what we're looking to do is we're looking to address the issues that many African American men experience, minorities as a whole. And we're discussing things that we don't talk about. And oftentimes there's things of the heart. As we all are going through the new year, going through the holiday season. The holiday season is always not a time of joy and happiness for many people because they're reflecting on something that's very important to them. That's the love lost. Over these last few years, unfortunately, we've dealt with loss with COVID and many other things, and it's been in a time where we've been most vulnerable. And we believe, as many should, that our minority men, our African American men, Latino men, we deal with stress a little bit differently, and we're not having conversations. And that is really holding us back in our ability to lead our families, to heal, and to be able to move on. And I, being an insurance broker nationally, I deal with all types of situations. And the thing that disturbs me most is when I see a sad and broken heart. And that's what we often have. And many times that comes after the loss of a loved one. And we have these two gentlemen that we're speaking with today. They're young men, in their early 50s, and they're dealing with not just the loss of their significant other, their wives, but other losses within their family. And honestly, in our communities, we don't have those discussions. Death seems to be something that we don't talk about. But more importantly, I have the utmost love and respect for these two gentlemen because they literally were examples of loving their wives for multiple years through all kinds of challenges, sickness, financial, emotional, but they stayed strong. Each one of them at the end of the day, their wives were able to look them in the eyes and knew that God had blessed them with a man that was meant to be their husband for life. And they served. They were examples of men that served. Now, in our community, we understand the leaders of the emotional aspects of our relationships are our women. So it would be not too smart of me not to think we have an amazing young lady that's going to facilitate many of our conversations because oftentimes it is the women in our lives that help us connect to and bring out the emotions, the things that we don't want to talk about. And as you listen to Lou and Curry throughout the broadcast, you'll see the importance that their wives played in improving their ability to communicate, understand them, and love. So with that being said, everyone, I'd like to welcome Miss Mika Diamond as she would facilitate the broadcast.
And the crowd roars. No, I'm just kidding. Good morning. Good morning. First, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on this platform. I think it's very important for us to have these type of conversations. A lot of people, they're having conferences and workshops, but there are a lot of people who really need to dig deeper and be more intentional with making sure that we have these type of conversations. So I was excited to be able to be a part because I know that there are a lot of men that are dealing with internal battles, and the only way that they can see and be have something relatable for them to be able to, and it may not just be death, it may be something else that they're dealing with internally. And again, as I share with you guys, this conversation may be the hope for somebody to push and say, I can go on the next day when I'm grieving for the loss of a loved one. And so I'm extremely excited to have the conversation. I pray and hope that those who are watching, if it's not them, that they will share. They will let others know that this is not going to be the last conversation because, as we all know, you deal with this on a regular basis. It's not just one thing that happens. You continuously have to deal with, there's reminders that happen that remind you of certain things that will spark up emotions. And so I'm grateful. I have a lot of things that we're going to talk about. We're definitely going to be open, honest, and transparent. For those who are needing this conversation in order for them to move on. So welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the first show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to say healing individuals, not only men, but women as well, because we need an understanding on what you guys are dealing with internally in order for us to know, right? And understand the emotional side. So I appreciate and applaud you guys for saying, I'm going to be the voice. I'm going to be the person that's going to step up and discuss some of those hardships, those heart battles that you guys have dealt with, have dealt with so far and moving forward. So Curly, I'm going to start off with you. because I know you had a long time of going through, and sometimes, there is the death, but then there's the process prior to the death that
Yeah.
people don't understand and they don't know about. You are silently dying yourself on the inside, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so let's tell everybody a little bit about your journey. I know we got a bunch of questions and we're gonna dig deep, but let's talk about your journey dealing with the loss of your wife.
Well, um, for me, I'm more of a silent person. I'd like to deal with things on my own. And so I didn't spend a lot of time talking to a lot of folks, sharing what was going on with me. One of the closest people to me is LaQuentin. So he's the person that, when we sat down and we talked, he would ask me questions. He would ask me how I was doing. And that's once I got to the point where I could come out and sit down with someone to have that conversation. Other than that, I'm mostly keep things internally. I deal with things internally. That's just my style on how I handle things. From a spiritual aspect, I believe that God is within us and he's always with us. So, I'm having these conversations with God back and forth, from the very beginning all the way to the very end, so that's pretty much what it was with me.
And so how long were you and your wife together prior to I know there's some history of you guys have history,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
So when I met my wife had been dealing with lupus. She had been dealing with lupus 10 years prior to me meeting her. And so the way that my wife and I met, was I worked at American General and my wife worked next door at State Farm.
Okay.
And there was a store that was right next to our office that everyone went to within that little business complex. And so I would see her pass in front of the window all the time, and I just admired her beauty, And so one day I'm in the store, me and the store owner, we were talking, and Hope came in. She bought something, she purchased something, and then, she talked to the owner and she walked out.
And so that was your cue. That was Jesus in that moment, wasn't it?
In that moment, yes, and she was so beautiful that I probably would have never approached her, But I told the store owner, I was like, God, that's such a beautiful lady. He says, "Who, Hope?" I said, "You know her?" He says, "Yes." And I was like, "Yeah." So I mean, I said, I see her all the time coming back and forth. So I went back to my office. When I went back to the store later on that day, he says, "Here's her number." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
so he playing the middleman. He's playing the
middleman. And to this day, I thank him, because he's the one that started it all. And so I gave her a call and asked to take her out to lunch, and she agreed to. We went to lunch. We went to a Chinese restaurant. And we were having a conversation at the restaurant. She says, I almost didn't give you my number. She said, I just came out of a relationship, which was somewhat abusive.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, but she said, I thought about it. And then I went back in and I gave him a number and told him, hey, have you call me?
Well, look at Jesus coming through again, right?
Yeah. From that point, things just we became friends. We went out for a while. We talked. And gotta tell this story here. So when I took her out, she says, "Well, the next time I'm going to take you out." Oh. Now I'm from Louisiana, and Hope is from California, and I met her in California. So when she said that, I'm like, "What?" Because in Louisiana, women don't say that we're going to take a man out. They looking for.
I am one of those. I'm one of those. Okay, Go ahead.
And so I was surprised that she said that. And I'm like, okay, sure. And so it was time for lunch. I met her. She was driving a little red pickup truck. We got in her pickup truck and we were going to lunch. So we're driving to lunch and she drives through Jack in the Box. She goes through the drive-through. All right. She orders her food. She turns around, she looks at me, she says, "What do you want? I'm on a budget." And I was like, wow. I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. So I ordered my food, and after I ordered my food, we went back to her apartment and we ate lunch at her apartment. But like I said, I was just so impressed that, you know, you wanted to take me out, two,
Right.
you paid for it. But then she was honest.
Right.
I'm on a budget.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm on a budget. Hey, I said I was gonna take you to lunch. I didn't say I was gonna take you here or there. I'm gonna take you to lunch. You know, I'm on a budget. We went back, we had a great conversation. It just kind of went from there.
Yeah,
I think women should think like that, period.
Right.
On your first
Listen,
date,
I'm
remember he
taking
might
the
be
tip.
on a budget.
Well, I have so much more that I'm going to ask you in regards to which even what you just shared. But we definitely want to hear from Lou as well, who has dealt with the loss. So Lou, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your amazing wife.
Well, my name's Lou. Was married for 27 years to a beautiful lady inside and out. I think Quint said yesterday, I've been knowing Lou all my life. And yes, our family's been knowing each other ever since I can remember. But me personally, I knew of Stephanie, but I didn't meet Stephanie until 1981. And that summer that I met her, I was like 12 or 13. And she was like 11. And I was like, that green bathing suit at the pool, I got to check that out.
Hey, man,
it was on a journey. It was a pursuit. It was a pursuit after that. And I mean, and we ended up getting married years later. But
I remember that green
bathing
suit.
I always, my father-in-law tells me, he said, I remember that bathing suit. Her and Shalil had one just like her mama had one just like.
Hey, you know what? Something that's funny.
That started.
Now go ahead, Lou.
No, go ahead.
My father and my mother been married for 54 years, and my dad met my mom when she was 12.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
That's a blessing.
He tells me that all the time.
Until you just said that. I didn't know that until you just said it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I used to go to church with my aunt just to see her at church and have just enough money to get her a soda and me a soda.
You were budgeting too, huh, Lou?
And
I soda was 25 cents back then.
God told me that's gonna be my wife. He said, "Boy, you 12." And I'll never forget. I told my great aunt that, and it came to pass. So I had a beautiful wife. She still is beautiful to me, and I learned so much from her. She gave me 2 beautiful sons who are very outgoing young men, and I wouldn't exchange my journey for nothing. Just the way everything was, it was God's will, and I accept it. And I'm healing from things she done before she passed to encourage me. She wrote a journal for 3 years and told me I couldn't read until she was gone. And so I have applied my life to reading the journal and being able to try to encourage other people from her work.
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you this question, because unlike Curly, your wife, she wasn't sick when you met her, right? So this was developing. Am I correct?
Yes, she was. My wife actually, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer first time at 6 years old.
Oh wow!
So when I met my wife, as we was in high school, she was going through treatment and things then, and she had already had one breast removed before we ever got married. When she was real young, we was dating, and that was never a drawback for me because I loved the person that was inside, and I had so much respect for her because who she was and the way she treated me, that I never looked at no physical appearance never mattered to me. I wanted the love that I've seen within her. And our journey went on, and we got married and had reconstructive breast surgery and all that. So it was a long journey. Very long journey.
One of the things I want to emphasize there, I have, Lou knows my father very well, and it's like he has a PhD, and the fact of what their experience was, it just blows my mind, because think about what he said. He said, "I love the person," and I know that Curly was in the same state of mind, that sometimes as men, we fail to go beneath the surface. And not saying my sister's a beautiful woman, but there are certain things for some men that is just like, okay, this is a no deal. No, this is a deal breaker. But the fact that I've heard him say many times and Curly say many times, they said, I love who she is.
Exactly. Exactly.
Think about that. So if men, if we can learn to focus on understanding what's beneath the appearance and really looking for someone to connect to your heart, mind, body, and soul, that's going to allow you to go to the next level. I mean, we all have gotten it wrong, you know, in that process. But I just, you know, just to know two men that got it right. I mean, got it right early on to have those type of love, those journeys is pretty amazing. And that's, you know, it wasn't always easy because I had the opportunity to observe, you know, and Lou is actually the only guy that I never gave a hard time to try to date my sister. I don't know why. It just seemed natural in that process that he was the one, and it's because of that connection early on in their lives.
Let me ask you. Go ahead, Lou. I'm sorry.
LaQuinn, you know, you have to go beneath. That's how you have these marriages that last 55, 60 years.
Yeah.
You know, because you are going beneath the surface. And so, you know, I was just like any other man in the very beginning. Once I met Hope, I knew she had lupus. But once I saw her, I experienced the first lupus episode, and I had to take her to the emergency room. Like anyone else, I got scared, and I was ready to run, you know. And that's exactly what I did. I'm taking a shower one day, you know, and I'm asking God, hey, when are you going to show me my wife? And he says, I've already shown you your wife. You know, what are you talking about? It's like, and I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, I'm like, who? Hope? No, she got lupus. He says, no, that's your wife. That's who your wife is. And so I was being obedient. I was already told that Hope was my wife. He's already shown me my wife. Being obedient, I went down and I married Hope.
Wow. That's very important. So it looks like both of you guys were led by the Spirit in your decision making, which is very important.
Yeah.
And then, so I want to ask you, Curly, based on you knowing that she had lupus, based on you making the decision and you being obedient, walk us through the process of going through, because I know as most men, when going through things, they you know, they call them silent killers, right? Internally, you're battling with these things, right? So let's talk about how, as a man, you guys are raised to be strong. You're raised to not cry. You're raised to not show your emotions. Let's talk about how hard that process was for you going through it, knowing that your wife was going through her pain of illness.
Oh, that was just a very difficult process. The key thing is, one, you have in the back of your mind that, hey, I have to be strong for her. You know, so I have to show that I'm strong and that I'm supporting her. And as a man, you're feeling that if you break down in front of her, that she's going to break down. You can see the challenges she's already having. But one of the things with Hope, she made me a stronger person, you know, because when I watched the battle, as we took this journey together, and how strong she was and how she never gave up and how she looked at life, period. She was always happy. She was always positive. You know, when I'm watching the things that she's going through, and I remember, you know, a common cold, and I would take 2 days off of work. So that all changed for me. You know, I'm like, you know, taking time off of work wasn't the issue. You know, hey, I don't care. I got a cold. Get up and go to work.
Yeah.
You know, because look at what your wife is going through. And she's still getting up. She's cooking breakfast. She's still doing things, you know. So the little things that I thought was making me that was too much for me. No. Watching the battles that she went through and the journey that she went through and the strength that she had, oh yeah, that made me a much stronger man.
Wow. And that's so important, because I mean, even in just regular life, even if it's not an illness, you have to have those things that's going to push you to go beyond what you think your limit is, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I want to ask you one more question before I ask Lou. Give us a moment when it wasn't a give up moment, but this was a day where my energy is low and I'm trying to push. Give us a mental note and a moment, if you can remember one, because there are men that are having those days You know, they have those days where they're trying to figure out, how can I get beyond this moment? You know, when is the day or when is the time when I can take my face off for what everybody else is seeing, and I can be my authentic self and deal with my internal struggles? If you can remember one of those days, let us know.
That was early on in the marriage. We had just gotten married. Hope had got sick. She was in the hospital in ICU. We were having a conversation, and she needed to go on a ventilator, and she did not want to go on a ventilator, you know. And so, you know, having this conversation was, I don't believe God had me marry you to take you away from me so early. It's just something I don't believe. Hope is a Jehovah Witness, was a Jehovah Witness, you know, and there's just certain things that they didn't believe in, you know, and so she definitely didn't want to go into it. So I said, this is only going to help you breathe. This is not like a machine that's going to be working. It's going to assist you. You're still going to be conscious. If you ever get to the point where the machine is actually breathing for you and you're not conscious, I will remove you. But I need you to get on this machine because it's just going to help you breathe. And if you don't get on it, you probably won't make it. You know, so I'm going back and forth, and I just got promoted to being a manager, and I'm doing this. I'm going to work. I'm coming to the hospital, spending the night in the hospital. I get up, I get dressed, I go home really quick, get dressed, and I go back to work. So going back and forth. So at this point, when she's on that ventilator, you know, and the doctor sits back and he comes and he says, you know, she may not make it. That was the hardest point for me, you know, but I had to keep a strong faith. But when I walked out of the room, went to the kitchen at the hospital, her mom came with me. And that was the first time that I broke down and really became myself, you know, and just let her see that. You know, so her mom was the first person that I let see how I truly felt and what was going on.
Right. Would you say that that's very important for men to do, even though you have been raised a certain type of way based on your own experience? Would you say that men need to be more open to having those moments because it will help during the process? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're releasing, you know, and that's what I think I didn't understand about which I've learned now that especially when I see women crying and when they do certain things, they're releasing. That's their form of releasing. We as men haven't truly learned that until you get into situations like me and Lou. You start to understand that, hey, crying is a form of releasing, not a form of weakness.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was having a moment the other day and ended up talking about an hour and a half to Lou. And then one of the things that's so amazing about the situation with Lou is, you know, he's the one, and I told him this, sometimes I don't feel like I feel bad about my grieving or any thought that I had in the process, because other family members, we see our siblings or family members sometimes, but the husband sees them every single day.
Yeah.
So I have those moments where, you know, it's not so good. You know, I remember a day just sitting in the car. I got in the car and turned on the car and started crying and just sat there in the car. I was so used to sitting, you know, I have my mother, my sister in a text thread. And I sent her a text the other day. And it just, you know, it got me. And I called Lou. And what I found out is a lot of times the men, you know, he's become a strength for the family. Because he, regardless of what you think, I know a mother loves their child. I know a father loves their child, so on and so forth. But the intimacy that I saw between Lou and Stephanie, Curly and Hope, the love, I mean, that's why I'm so close to them. That's why I have so much respect and honor for them, because they displayed to me what it is like to really love and care for a woman. Because it said in sickness and health. And to me, seeing them in sickness, they were better in sickness than they were in health. And Lou was very adamant, bro, it's okay to cry, you know, because I just bust out when I started talking to him. And he explained it's therapeutic. He said, when I cry, I feel better.
Yeah.
And that's something that men, you know, as men, we struggle with. We always have to be that macho, strong guy. But after I cry about a situation, you know, I'm still not good at doing it in front of people, which is why you're narrating and I'm not. Because I'm not going to break down on camera. I refuse.
Yeah. And
But
I think one of the things also, and where I cannot take the credit and I will not take the credit, yes, I'm being strong and I was always strong for my wife, but one of the things that did that for me also was the way that she loved me. And her love was so strong, really, I'm trying to really compete. Because I'm like, how can I love this woman back the way that she loves me?
Right.
And why? I'm like, why does she love me the way that she is? So you're reciprocating. Is what you're doing. So yes, most people say the sickness, but no, I'm reciprocating the love that she's showing me. I'm reciprocating the woman that she is and who she was as a person. I was just reciprocating and just trying to keep up.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's
okay.
deep.
It's very, very deep, very, very deep. So Lou, I want to start off by you sharing with globally, because now we global. We find it, we learning about your amazing sugar baby, right? I learned sugar baby.
That's right.
So I want you to share with us, for those who don't know us, tell us about your wife and the depth of your love for her going through this process.
Well, my wife was such an amazing person to me. I mean, it didn't matter what anybody else saw. I seen her work from within. Just to be honest and transparent all the way, I had spent 12 years of my life incarcerated, and my wife was there no matter where I was, her and my kids. I got letters and cards every day. And it was very important for me to do self rehabilitation, knowing that I had support. And I told Quentin the other day, I'll never forget my youngest son, Lewis. She was pregnant with him when I was being hauled away federal. And she touched the glass where I was sitting and told me, she said, "Get it together. I'll be here when you get back."
Wow.
So it was a long journey. But I told Quentin, I learned how to father from a distance. I learned how to love from a distance. And when I came home, I had made up in my heart and my mind. And I told Sugar Baby, I said, I can't repay you for all that you've done for me. But what I can do is show you from this point how much I appreciate you.
Yes.
And I committed to that. And in my commitment to that, it had no limits. To whatever I needed to do for her and my children, I was willing to make it happen. And it wasn't an easy journey. I wasn't the best guy. And it's so true when they say the opposites attract. Stephanie and I was total opposite people. Total opposite people. People used to always ask her, what made you, why did you choose? She said, I think I just like the bad guy was in. So and it was it was beautiful to be able to conversate and live and experience God with such a beautiful person who wanted so badly for our marriage to be without conflict.
Yeah.
No matter what I had done and things, she wanted our marriage to be without conflict. And we worked hard to do that. It wasn't easy. And approaching her time when the cancer had went into remission, I think it was 20 years. And we was playing racquetball at the Y. And at that Saturday, she said she felt a lump under her arm and went and got checked. And sure enough, the cancer had resurfaced. But we had made up in our mind from that point that our faith was going to drive us to win the race. And we committed to that, that there was going to be faith over fear. And the fear come in when you got to hear the doctor tell you in 2017, you got 3-4 months. 2019, you're looking at about 4 months. 2021 is approaching really fast. But God allowed us to outlive and exceed everything that man has said to 2022. Right. So with that, I feel that we won the race.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One of the things that there's 3 things there. One we can't really address now that, like Lou and Curly are going to be regulars on this program. We're doing it together. And number one, maybe not now, but I really want Lou to be in this space of sharing how in his journey he fathered from behind the walls. I mean, he used to tell me how I usually, when it's my time to talk, I'm going over spelling bee words with my kids. He would literally go over their homework and work with them to be engaged in their lives while he was there. And that connection is so important. And what happens is a lot of times we have unfortunate situations where our men, they have those experiences where they are locked away. But he connected with his kids passionately through that. The other thing I wanted to share is that Lou used to get mad when the doctors would tell them they had so much time. I mean, he would be fire mad. Who are they to tell us how many? They're not. He'd be walking, he'd be walking back and forth. They can't tell me. Let me talk to you for a minute. They can't tell me. I mean, he would literally pronounce. I mean, without a doubt, with Lou and with Curly. I mean, because Curly, they both went through some, very, very tough times where the doctor said they were going to make it, but their faith. I mean, technically, my sister is stage 4 in 2016. Like he said, in 2017, she was supposed to be done. In 2009, I resigned from a position because my mom, Lou, called me and said, to keep me abreast of what was going on. I thought it was the end almost a year before. And she ended up getting another year and a half almost after that. But I resigned from my job. I'm like, I'm going to be with my sister. My dad and my like, no. It's just amazing what their faith did. The thing that broke my heart probably the most that you're probably going to touch on was when Hope had reached her last days. Curly called me and he said, "This is different."
Yeah.
Wait, don't go back. Don't go into that one yet.
Okay. Lou did the same thing. I get off of it. I get off of it.
But because we gonna go.
But what it is, it really is the faith. Your faith is what keeps you strong. Just like Lou, I mean, that moment that I told you about. Eventually, the doctor says she may have 5 years. But Hope was getting things like that before we even met. That she may be here another 2 months. She may be here another a year or so. And at that point, when I came along, they told me she may have 5 years. They only gave us 25. That's a blessing. You can't get upset with that. Because you had all this time. And another thing that Lou says that's really important that men really need to understand is commitment. That's how we do it. Once you commit to something, you're gonna stick with it. If you're not committed, you're not going to stick with it. So you got to commit it. So she was committed. He was committed. I was committed. Hope was committed. And that's how we made it work. You're going to have challenges in any marriage. Everyone has them. But that commitment is what takes you to the next level.
Yeah. Were you getting ready to say something, Lou?
Okay. Yeah, because I think we as black men, we start a lot of things, but we very seldom finish anything.
Yeah.
We start relationships, we don't finish. We start families, we don't finish. Jobs and stuff, we don't finish. So I was just to the point of myself, I was tired of not finishing. I mean, and now I want to grow. I don't want to just finish stagnant. I want to do something. I want to excel. But it takes so much time to try to deal with your personal life of the absence of your loved one, and to put yourself back into a situation where you can grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because to me, I've kind of put myself in a shell right now, and I make excuses why I'm not doing this and why I'm not doing that. It's the pain. The absence of someone that you really enjoy being around you, someone that made you smile, someone that got up in the morning, you bumped into them and it started your day. That pain is there because the absence of that person you love so much and you spent so much time with, they're not there no more. and you have to make adjustments. How do I adjust to this?
Yeah.
How do I deal with the person that I was living with for 20 plus years, was married to, seen them all throughout the day? You come in the house, you knew you was gonna hear their voice. Now you don't hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
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 The things that are going through your mind, the emotion state. I mean, the energy. You got to keep the energy up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we definitely, because I kind of want to get y'all to the point of, you know, the depth, and then we're gonna go into what the show is, and that's, you know, how have y'all been able to move forward afterwards, right?
Right.
So we're gonna go ahead and go into it now, Mr. Jenkins. We go ahead.
And like I said, that's why you are a facilitator.
Yes.
No worries, because you know this is as open, honest, and as transparent, so that everybody know this is not rehearsed. This is true, authentic, transparent dialogue. So I want to get us to, as Mr. Jenkins, as Quentin said, you know, when you both started getting to those moments, right? We know that Lou was upset with the doctor said, and God blessed you with longer periods of time, and you were obedient in your faith. But let's talk about those final moments when you had to realize, okay, this is really about to happen, right? This is really going to happen. How did you deal with that, those emotions? And when was the light bulb that, okay, I do have faith. It looks like this is, and I don't want to say faith is running out, but it looks like it's really getting ready to take place. So let's talk about that, Curly.
Wow. You got to have faith all the way through it, you know. And with Hope and I, it was ride or die, you know. And that's one of the things that we talked about, you know. So it was always ride or die. And I told her I would be there to the very end. And so this hospital stay, you know, when Hope yelled my name, because she was downstairs and I was asleep. It's like something vibrated through my spirit, because she took me out of a sleep. And when I ran down those stairs, you know, and I saw her trembling and shaking, and she was like, I got to go to the hospital. Something's not right. You know, I threw on some clothes, you know, and I was driving. My whole spirit changed, you know. And we've gone to the hospital many times, many days, and a lot of times she woke me up, and we needed to go to the emergency room. This time my entire spirit changed, you know. The way she had never been this way before. When we went into the emergency room, you know, the guy was nonchalant, you know, with us coming into the emergency room, and just what's coming. But the moment he saw Hope and he started working with her, he took her back immediately. Never seen that happen before. Never seen that happen before. So at that point, I knew something was different. Also, she started being treated right away. She was being treated before doctors had even come to see her. You know, so that was the time. So she had an infection. The infection had already began to take over her body, and that's what they started to treat. And so they was treating that infection, the infection aggressively. And I think, you know, later on that evening is when I talked to LaQuentin, and I said, LaQuentin, this is different. This is totally different. I mean, it was the way that I felt driving to the hospital. It was the way that the doctors were moving. It's like the whole movement of our journey changed. You know, you're used to these experiences. You're going in and out of the hospitals, and we've been doing that for years. You know, and but this one here was very different. Even when she went into surgery, I was fine. I never missed a surgery. I always was at the hospital with her. Any job that I took, you know, I made it a point. Hey, this is what my priorities is, my wife. And if she's sick, she has a doctor appointment, she's in the hospital, I'm going to be there. You know, so if I can work from home, that's what we're going to do. I don't take my computer and stuff, things like that. But that was the moment for me. I could tell my entire spirit changed. The way that the emotions went through, everything changed. We went to the hospital. We went from there. The dialysis changed. They had a hard time giving her dialysis. They had a hard time. And I was afraid then, you know, like, you know, will she make it through this dialysis treatment?
Right.
So when we go through, she made it through the dialysis treatment. We get her admitted into the hospital. And the very next day, you know, the lady comes in and says, hey, I'm going to move her to the ICU unit because I think we can keep more of an eye on her. you know. And I mean, I was there all night with her, you know, and she kept trying to climb out the bed. She just really wasn't herself anymore until they got most of that infection out of her. You know, and then as we were in the IC unit, and the doctors kept coming and the teams kept coming, and the way that they were talking and stuff. And that was one of the problem that I had with that, is the way that the doctors were talking. You know, it was just like, hey, you know, there's nothing we can do. You know, so they run all these tests, they take in, and then finally, you know, you have one set of teams saying, hey, it's in the situation is inoperable. And then you have another set of team come in and says, oh, well, you know, hey, we're looking to get her into surgeries and stuff. And so this constant back and forth, and you don't know what's going on. And that was a challenge. That was a challenge for me, and it was a challenge for Hope, you know. But watching her go through that and having to make some really, really tough decisions at that time, it was extremely, extremely, extremely difficult.
Let me ask you this one question before we move over to Lou. Do you, or did she have that conversation with you, knowing that what was getting ready to take place? You know, you have some people that say that they knew, you know, and they do things prior to them. Did you guys have that conversation with each other?
We had that conversation several times. First of all, we had that conversation, understanding, you know, that what between the lupus and the kidneys, you know, there was at some point, you know, she was going to go. So we've always had that conversation as far as what her wishes was and what she wanted. But at that time, when they said the surgery was inoperable, we had a conversation.
Okay.
You know, and that's basically when she told me what she wanted, what she was looking for, you know, but she was a fighter. I'm not giving up. And that she kept saying, I'm not giving up, but we need to talk about this. So we did have this conversation, you know, what she wanted from me. You know, I want my sister taken care of, make sure that you always take care of my sister. You know, I want you to be happy. You know, I'm gone. You still young. You know, she was thinking about everybody else except for herself. Wow. And these are the things she was saying to me. And I was in the denial. Like, you know, you're going to be here. You're not going anywhere. You know, we're going to keep going. We're going to see what happens. You know, especially, you know, with the doctors going back and forth. But then it came to that point where, you know, they were calling me and they were saying, hey, you know, here's the recommendations. And they were talking about putting her on hospice. You know, so I'm having these conversations with her about hospice, and I'm letting her know that, hey, once we leave from the hospital, for you to go on the hospice, there's no more treatment, you know. And once they stop this treatment, you know, this is
Mm-hmm.
going to probably, you know, be it for you, you know. And so that was the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
She didn't let me make that decision. She made it herself. You know, the nurses kept calling me, and I said, look, she's not ready. And when she's ready, then I'll let you guys know something. I know my wife, you know, and they says, well, you know, sometimes the family have to make these decisions. No, you guys don't know my wife like I know her. I know my wife. And when she tells me she's ready, that's when we're going to be ready. And so when she said she was ready, that's when things happen. She says, now you can go ahead and tell them to call hospice out. So I gave the information. They called hospice out. When hospice came out, she asked all the questions. All right. I signed every document. I signed everything for every surgery that we've had that was going on through this entire few months that she was in the hospital, you know. But when it came to go to hospice, she asked the questions. She told the lady to bring the documents to her, and she signed the documents the best way she can. She would not let me sign those documents.
Wow. Wow.
Because she wanted it to be her decision. She wanted all family that was in that room to know it was
her decision. Wow. Yeah. We're going to talk about the family in just a moment with after. So we're going to talk about that. So Lou, so share with us your moments leading up to and making those hard decisions as well.
I think it really gotten tough. We had in and out moments, the hospital, but October the 5th of 2022 was our anniversary. That morning, I was helping her get out of bed, and her body just got stiff as a board. I couldn't move her. I couldn't do anything. And I remember letting out a scream to the top of my voice like never before, because I felt something that went all over my body that I've never felt before. And my father-in-law, he came in, and that was the first time I ever had to call the paramedics out. And she was already on hospice then. My wife was already on hospice then. But that moment was a true moment to me, because we never made it back home. After we went to the hospital, the doctors did everything, and it was just something in my mind and in my heart was just telling me, okay, at this point, the only thing you can do is be here with her. And I knew when they transferred my wife from the hospital to, she had to go to a hospice center, care center. And we were there for a week. I stayed there every night. I wanted to be there. But I really knew that at that time that it was transition. She knew, I knew. I was sleeping in a chair next to her bed, and I was totally uncomfortable, but I didn't care. I just wanted my head to be on the same pillow with her. And when I laid my head on that pillow, I could feel her energy and everything within her. She was trying to get close to me as she possibly could get. And I remember that night when she passed, I closed her eyes. But that was a real moment for me, because I knew then the beautiful sugar baby that I had present with me, she wasn't going to be there anymore. And it was a journey that we had prepared each other for. It was no secrets. We talked about it lying in bed, talked about it on our road trips. My wife was a very organized and structured person, so she pretty much, if I wasn't listening to her, she made sure that when she was gone, she had it wrote down somewhere. Continue to do what things needed to be done.
It sounds like somebody else I know.
I'm with
I often wonder though. I often wonder if men were in that situation, would we be just as active as women are and open as women are? Because that has helped me to be able to deal with my situation, how open my wife was about her situation.
Let me ask you this. So you do something, and now we're going to move into, after, because I think this is really critical. Everything that you guys have shared has truly been a blessing to those who are going through, right? Who are going through, and then understanding their role when it comes to being by someone's side during that, sickness and in health, right? But I want to know, based on, after that moment for you, how did you, because we've walked through going through the moment, and so now I want to walk through after that day, how did you feel? Not basically, were you lost in your thoughts? Were you lost? And when I say lost in thoughts, of knowing what to do, you guys had time to prepare, but there are some times when we don't have time to prepare, right?
That's right.
Or there are some conversations that aren't had during the process that leaves you confused on what to do. So let's talk about how important that was after the loss.
Well, you know, like you say, you have time to prepare, but there's no preparing.
Right.
There's just no preparing. You can talk about the things that need to happen, and when I'm gone, this and that. But as an individual preparing for someone's death, you can't be prepared for it. That emotion is just going to take over when that person is gone. Now, what you in your mind, you understand that it's coming. But that's all you can do. Once that person is gone, I mean, a flood of emotions just come in, just takes over your body. It's like it's almost as if your energy is leaving with them, or your energy feels that a part of you has just left, you know, you. But for me, I eventually realized that yes, that physical portion of her had left. That spiritual portion was still there with me.
That's good.
And as Lou said, you know, from an organization standpoint, I am very unorganized. My wife was very organized, and the way that she set up the system for me to continue after she was gone was unbelievable. I would have been absolutely lost. There was a spreadsheet that has everything on it: when the bills are due, what date they're due,
Wow.
here's the website, here's the password. It was as if she knew that she was going to be gone, and she needed to have this information there for me. And if it wouldn't been there, I would have been completely lost.
Yeah.
No way I would have survived. You know, but she made all this thing with come. And then so my tax clients, I'm sitting there, you know, I mean, I'm already behind on taxes because I had to file extensions for most of my tax clients. And so I'm sitting there when I finally got back to the point where I started to do taxes again, and I had to finish up these clients. I'm asking questions, and I'm like, gosh, she's not here to answer these questions. I open up the folder, and there's detailed information telling me she was. It was like she was talking to me right then and there. I'm like, wow, I'm asking this question, and here you have it right there. Dad, it was coming. Mr. Such and such stuff is here. Switch column is here. He says this. Her notes were so detailed, and the way that she put the information in there, if it wasn't for that, I don't know how I would have made it.
Yeah, for sure. You know, what about? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I want to make a point. So being an insurance broker and dealing with, you know, the pain of delivering life insurance policies and all these things, that's one of the things we know. The whole title of this is Black Men Real Talk, continuing life after the loss of a loved one. You know, it's so unfortunate that we have so many women that I deal with all the time who husbands pass away first, and there's no real instruction. They didn't get involved in the bill. They don't know where they're invested. I mean, I've dealt with situations where people have millions of dollars and the wives don't know what to do. They never were part of the process. So it's, you know, I know a lot of time, particularly in the southeastern part of the United States, that's where I grew up, you know, we have this macho mentality. But, you know, making sure that their wives or significant others are in a position of partnership, and they understand, you know, these two men had you know, exceptional women that laid out a roadmap, you know, and even me trying to have the conversation and working with people to have the conversation with their fathers, you know, where is everything? How is it structured? What's supposed to be happening? And one of the things that blows my mind, I've even had people pass away in recent years, where the only way they found the life insurance is that I told them, I said, hey, I have a list of things that they do. I say, hey, go look in the bank account and look for anything that looks like a life that they're paying a monthly premium on. Start calling those numbers. I can't tell you how many people that found the life insurance for their from their husband by going through and doing that process. So as we talk about these things that we should do as men, get them engaged at an early age in the financials. Help them see what you're investing in, what your goals are. Discuss your financial goals as well as, you know, your personal goals. And that's one thing that both of these, you know, Lou definitely, nor my sister, you know, that's just the way she is, because we talk about, she was an exceptional educator. When she passed, there was carloads of people that came down from Birmingham that were educated. She hadn't taught almost 6 years. The whole community just absolutely loved her. But as men, we got to take the time to make sure that our spouses understand and know what we have, where it is, so that we don't see some of the things I've seen with great loss financially because they've come in and been taken advantage of.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely have to talk about the mental health side and how Simple Choice be able to help those who are seeking additional help when it comes to that as well. So Lou, I wanted to ask you this question. How, and Curly, you can answer as well, how after the loss, how are you managing day to day? How do you manage your life after the loss of a loved one?
Really is, I tell Q all the time, I get up every morning, I have my meditation time from like 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
My strength comes from encouraging other people.
Mm-hmm.
If I miss a day of encouraging somebody else to be the best, then my day goes goes crazy. So my energy comes every morning from applying my faith to really get up. After I read Sugar Baby's journal entry or something, and I'll sit there and I meditate, and I just think of who she was thinking of, or who she was writing about, or what she was writing about, and I think about how to take my morning devotion and apply the word to my life in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And my daily life, I've just taken on. I work my own business in the day, but at night I've taken on a second contract just to have something to do for
Mm-hmm.
3 hours a night.
Yeah.
The hardest part for me, I believe, though, is entering the home after work and just being in there by myself. If my son is not there, just being there by myself is the hardest part. And I think my coping with that has been chess on the computer, reading. I love to read, and just trying to find ways to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the power to change what has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell Quentin all the time, I'm not going to put a lot of energy into a negative space that I can't change.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to take that energy and put it into something positive. And that to me is to enjoy life and the beautiful memories that I have of a beautiful lady that will always be a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I choose to do with my energy, with my space, my mental space. And I'm not willing to allow nobody to infiltrate that, because that's my personal space.
Right.
And I have to keep it positive. I have to keep it structured. And I've really grown to the point where I understand now it's okay for me to tell people no. It's okay
Right.
to me to tell people no, I don't feel like doing it. I don't want to do it. Today is not a good day for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Christmas, prime example. I had to excuse myself from the room for my boys for about an hour because I had a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first time that I didn't get to be around and be intimate with the lady that I had been with all those years on
Yeah.
that day with our family.
Yeah.
So it was a hard moment for me.
I started laughing.
But to be honest, it's really no answer, because whatever makes you feel good at the moment or helps you get past a moment that's what works.
I started laughing because that guy right there, he definitely goes in and believe. We were the within the days we were in the hospice, I'd flown into town, and I get there, he's taken to put this huge note that he's written stating no never negative energy. I mean, he go in deep telling me if you can't say anything positive, you have negative energy, even negative thought. He said, don't come in this
Don't enter the
room.
room.
Yeah.
I
That's
know.
right.
It's
It's
important.
like,
It's important because you don't want a downer. You need someone
Right.
who is going to uplift. You're already in the moment.
Right.
And so you need somebody to,
Exactly.
especially if your significant others aren't in that moment. You definitely don't want somebody else to
Yeah.
bring it inside of the room. So I want that's a good segue into the question, Curly, you can answer as well as the management side. But how should a person cope with family? Because you also have to be strong for your family individuals as well. And you have to, as Quentin put the note up and say, I mean, not Quentin, sorry, Lou, put the note up saying no negative energy. How do you manage that after the loss?
I'll run into that, but first, so after the loss for me, the first thing that it was hard for me to get out of bed. All I wanted to do was just lay in the bed. I laid on my wife's side, and I would just sleep. And there were all these shows because my wife had these different shows that she taped. And there was months of shows that we hadn't watched. Shows that some of them that I didn't watch, some of them we watched together. I watched every show. Every show I watched, I cried. I just let myself grieve. Just let it come through. Just let it pour. That's what I had to do, and then I could hear my wife tell me after a few months, look, it's time for you to get out of that bed. This is not what I wanted for you. Life goes on. Move on. I need you to get up and I need you to start doing things. And that's what got me out of bed. That's what got me going back and just taking it one day at a time, And so I just started taking it one day at a time. Once I got that acceptance that my wife was gone, you know that your wife is gone, but you got to accept that fact. Once I accepted the fact that physically she was no longer here, okay, but I knew her spirit was still with me because she's still talking to me. We're still having conversations. She's telling me it is time for you to get up. It is time for you to do this. It's time for you to do that. That's how I got going again, understanding that piece. That's what worked for me. And then just taking it one day at a time, and that's what I did, one day at a time. As far as for family, I understand my family, and it's not just family, it's family and friends. A lot of folks just don't know what to say.
Right.
And they don't know what they're saying is things that they shouldn't be saying. So for me, the best thing is I don't want to be around anybody.
Right.
Because you're trying to find words to say something, but you don't need to say anything. And as I said, people just feel they got to say something. You don't need to say anything, and that's one thing about Quentin. Quentin didn't call me all the time. He didn't keep ringing my phone. He sent a text message. That's all we really need, because we know you're thinking about us.
Right.
Send a text message, so people know that you're thinking about it. For the witnesses, they bought food by. So at least I had something to eat because I couldn't move. I wouldn't go out of the house. But at least I would answer the door because someone was bringing food by, And so I just taking it one day at a time. Family is family. Family. You know how they're going to be. Family is not getting ready to change because you want them to change right then and there.
Yeah, Understand
that. Understand that. There's no need to get upset with family. There's no need to do any of that. You know who family is. And at the end of the day, you're going to love family regardless. Family is going to love you regardless. I don't care how messed up you may be, And people say, well, my family is so messed up. Every family is messed up.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, But the whole thing about it is family, and we love each other regardless.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Quentin, I have a question for you. I know this is different, right? I've been asking all the questions. I have a question for you based on us talking about family. You have been a part of both of the losses, right? And you've also had to be the strength, but you also have your weak moments as well, where you had to be vulnerable and be transparent with yourself and say, I am hurting as well. When did it become a time where you felt like you can openly share and be vulnerable with them, knowing that they were going through? Or were you that way the entire time? Speak to that for us, please.
Well, being vulnerable with Lou and Curly was never difficult for me. I have the good fortune of, most of my friends I've known since Andalusia, Alabama, 1969. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are on my Facebook and I'm connected to. I don't remember life without knowing them. So it was very easy for me to talk to those guys. But this is the thing. Those guys are not close to me physically. Right. Talking to my Saints, guys I played with at college, Andre, lost his sister during COVID. So this whole time I'm talking to him about that process. Cause, I used to tell my sisters, particularly Stephanie, that, hey, I'm gonna grow on, you guys, I'm gonna be rich. I'm gonna build a house for each of my siblings, live on the side of me. Y'all gonna take care of me when I'm old. But these guys it wasn't difficult to talk to them at all because I wanted to be a support system for them. The thing that I struggle with is, throughout my entire life, I don't deal with the emotions of a situation in the time that it occurs. Like, I really just started, which is why I decided to do this, to really address. I mean, I hear certain things that my sister said. She said, for the last 15 years, you really haven't, lived. You've been in a space that's just been your daughter. She said, you got to go live because you don't know how much time you have. Right. And that within itself made me more and more open to reaching out to my sons, talking to my parents more, talking to Lou, talking to Curly and other friends. But I just started. This show is an indication. This is my healing moment. This is my healing moment, you know. And typically I would do that. I'm a very private person. I would do that privately. But I realized as I was meditating and thinking about my first call Lou about it, is like, you know, there's a lot of men out there that are hurting for many different reasons. You know, there's some men that, you know, I dealt with grieving I grieved with my divorce for 10 years. But the problem was I didn't start really grieving about it until about the 8th and 9th year. My sister, I'm just starting to really dive into that she's not here. And, you know, just so used to sending her text messages, you know, just not even thinking, like every time something happened with Nevaeh and I, you know, I'm used to sending a text message to her, my mom, and my sister Shalia. And I find myself sitting, you know, and you catch yourself in that moment. So, you know, I wanted to be raw with it. They've had time, they're processing it daily, but it was just doing this house, you know, this season on Christmas Day, I didn't do anything. Thanksgiving, I didn't do anything. So I had to pick time and spaces to really feel the emotion of the space. And I want to encourage all men out there, doing it the way I have done it most of my life is not the way. Doing it the way, and I told Lou this the other day. Lou took off running straight into it. He was like, I got to deal with it. He said, I have to deal with it. And me, I was like, I'm gonna put it on the shelf. It's like I'm eating a meal and I just take a little bit at a time. I just got to a space to say, you know what? I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna eat the entire plate. I'm gonna deal with all the feelings and emotion. I call Lou, I'll cry, we'll read. But one of the things that he's really helped me with is this book he shared with me. And I'm gonna show you guys this book. He said he bought this book, I think it was 16, 17, Lou?
About 2017, I think it was.
So, you know, I do not get any royalties from this book. So if you see but the 13 things mentally strong people don't do. And Lou said when he first got the book, he wasn't really connecting with it, but he's read it several times. So in that book, it has helped me a lot because he and I are reading it together right now. Is one of the things it talks about is not feeling sorry for yourself in the space that you're in. Yeah. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. This is a book about grief. It says, do not feel pity for yourself in the space that you're in. Because that is a doorway to depression, sadness, and your life going in a downward spiral. He says you have to accept what did Curly say? He said accept. He said you have to accept the fact of what took place and deal with it. Your thoughts, what did he say, Lou? Your thoughts, your emotions.
I mean, just
all of
you got to embrace you.
And you got to walk into those rooms.
That book, this is my 5th time reading that book, I believe. My 5th time reading it. Not knowing that this was going to help me in this moment of my life. When I bought the book at first, I said, man, put it down, picked it up and read a little bit, flying back and forth to Houston. And I think I just had one moment in that book where it just self-pity, I think, is the first chapter. That is the biggest attack, because you go and say, what about me? What I got to do? I got to do all this. I need to do all that. You think you grab so much more responsibility, which you really don't. You've been doing things all along the whole time. You just have to make an adjustment for the absence of someone who was helping you along the way or with you, so that I think that's the part that a lot of men fall into the self-pity. And they don't think they can do it, but you can do it. You can do it. You got to believe in yourself. You got to know that there is going to be death. There's going to be people that you love they're gonna leave. You got to know one thing, Stephanie and I, when we got married, one thing that we knew: if we didn't leave here together, one of us was gonna leave somebody behind.
Wow.
And one of the things you got to understand about your wives is Hope and I, we complemented each other. Where I was weak, she was strong. Where she was weak, I was strong. But I see what I'm doing now is those strengths that she had with the organization, the writing things down, putting tasks together. I am now taking on that spirit. I am starting to put these things into place. because my wife put those things in place, and because I love her, and that's part of her that's with me and that's going to always remain with me. I am now making that part of Curly.
Awesome.
You know?
Awesome.
And so it's helping me.
One thing that I regret, I have one regret from I didn't do. My wife, she was a technology specialist at the school. That's what she did. She ran all the technology programs besides other stuff. I didn't get the part where she was trying to, you with your iPad, with your laptop. I have problems. I have issues with technology.
That's her way of it. She gonna speak to you through learning it.
Yeah,
I mean, because this morning I was like, okay, now Quint, okay, I'm looking here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
But
that has been my issue.
That's another part of Black Man Real Talk, because as leaders in our families, in our communities, technology is a really big thing that we have to embrace full.
Absolutely.
We have to embrace, and we're talking about, we spent most of our time and we continue talking about, dealing with how to continue life at the loss of a loved one. But the thing we haven't mentioned that I wanted to mention very quickly, you can tell me to be quiet if I'm
no, go ahead.
is, Curly lost hope, earlier this year in the springtime. Curly lost his favorite uncle in October. Curly turned around and lost his father about a week or two later. He'd actually passed away 2 days after my sister. Lou is in South Alabama right now because his mother is in hospice.
Yes.
So in October, he went through the process of hospice and, with his wife. So the two most important women in his life.
I say it all the time.
I don't even want to say it, but the two most important women in his time. And he's only here, Curly is on here trying to pour back into our community to get people to understand that, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be, because you've had a situation with the law, it doesn't mean you can't have love and we're an awesome family and be a father, right? Because you meet someone that currently has a condition that was told that she has 5 years to live, that God can't bless you with 25 to 27 more years. So the fact that these men, not just dealing with their wives, they've had to deal with multiple losses, right? And Lou is in the midst of dealing with his mother right now, who's in hospice associated with cancer, his wife with cancer. Curly lost his wife, his father, and his favorite uncle. And I don't even know if it had been really 6 months or so. I know his uncle and dad was within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But that's a lot to chew on. So all you guys out there,
mentally, yeah.
In every aspect of life. So
and with my father, my uncle and my father, with those two passing and my father being the last one, that's the end of a whole generation. His entire family is gone. That generation is gone. So this is the second generation that that's still around that has to keep doing things. So that was a challenge, but you got to keep going. You got to keep moving. And one of the things is, even in my business, my tagline, my motto, or whatever you want to call it in my business, freedom is a choice. And that goes for everything. That goes for life. That goes for financials. That whatever it is, you choose how you want to live and how you're going to live and what you want from this world. We all have that ability to tap into that God power. Every last one of us, And one thing that one of the things that keeps me strong and that I like to share, if you guys don't mind.
Absolutely.
I keep this poem on my wall, and it's one thing that I abide by and I understand really good. And I'll read it. We do not choose to be born. We do not choose our parents. We do not choose our historical epic, the country of our birth, or the immediate circumstances of our upbringing. We do not, most of the time, choose to die, nor do we choose the time or condition of our death. But within all this realm of choicelessness, we do choose how we shall live. Courageously or in cowardice, honorably or dishonorably, with purpose or in drift. We decide what is important and what is trivial in life. We decide that what makes us significant is either what we do or what we refuse to do. But no matter how indifferent to the universe may be to our choices and decisions, these choices and decisions are ours to make. We decide and choose, so our lives are formed. Joseph Epstein.
Wow, that's awesome. And so true in so many ways. So true in so many ways. What I love, and I'm just going to ask you guys one more question, because I definitely know that we're going to do this again, because there's some other questions that, after the moment. I think this was an awesome show to get us to what you guys went through mentally and physically during the process. We did tap into, but there's so much more beyond the actual moment that we can discuss and talk about. Yeah. And then also, I want people to understand as well that this doesn't necessarily have to be a loss of death. It could be a loss of a job. It could be a loss of a relationship. It can be a loss of so many different things. But the same support, the same mental health is the same process. So we'll get into more things of, it's not really directed towards the actual incident or the actual life transition or the tragedy, whatever the case may be. The same principles and mental state, some of the procedures and processes that you guys have went through can help somebody in those arenas as well. So we'll be able to speak more to that. But this is what I wanted to ask you guys before we get off, because we know, we definitely appreciate everybody who tuned in and watched. We know it's New Year's Eve. We know people are preparing to go into 2023. But the one thing that we want to do is sometimes we have to say we don't want to go into our next season with residue, right? And the only ways that we can do that is if we reevaluate ourselves and look at ourselves internally and see some of those things that we don't want to take into this new year. So this was very good on this New Year's Eve. So for men who are watching and they are seeking support, or they are trying to navigate and find their way through your own loss. And even right now, Lou, with you having to mentally go through this process again, and then Curly, in short periods of time, you had to go through another loss. What would you speak to those who were tuned in? And then Quentin, I want you to, as well, as a brother who has lost some as well, who has came to grips with yourself and said that your grieving process is not the right process to go through. What would you speak to those who are tuned in today to share to help them in their journeys?
I would say one thing, we are all spiritual people living in a physical body, and you need to lean on your spirituality, and whatever you may believe, you got to understand that there is a creator that function. Everything that we do, everything that we've done, we have that power. We have the power to tap into that creator, to tap into that source of that power. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do. However, you see fit, whatever works for you, tap into that power, keep your faith, understanding faith. Everybody talks about faith and knows what faith is, but it don't come into place until you really have to exercise it. And that's the key. You must exercise your faith. That's what's going to take you through.
And then also exercising your faith and knowing it's still the will of God, regardless to what ending is.
Yes.
Yeah. Understanding that I still got to have faith, even though it may not go the way I want it to go. Yes. It's still the will of God. Right. And I think once people understand that, and then also, as you guys have both shared, even though man said one thing, God said something else. So because of the extension of the blessing that he gave you with years, doesn't mean you can't look at that as not being a blessing because it didn't end the way or go the way that you wanted it to go. So very important, very important. All right, Mr. Lou, what would you speak to those who need that support and need to get beyond their moment?
For me, it's been important that I be true to myself, real with myself about who I am, what space I'm in, and not really knowing how long I'm gonna be here in this space. So you just have to be open to yourself. First of all, I can't do it without God. You know, I just, without the Lord Jesus Christ on my side and leading and guiding me daily in my life, I can't see the pathway. But I choose not to give up along the journey. I call it recovery to a healthy mind. You just have to find a support system that works for you. It might not be people. It could be something therapeutic that you like to do. Me personally, I like to fish. I go fishing a lot, and it helps me to just know that I'm out here and that I have an opportunity to help somebody else. You know, to be better today than we were yesterday. It's no real answer, I don't think, because everybody goes through grief in a different way. And like Quinn said, sometimes at one point he put his on the shelf and then decided to come back and partake of it. Me personally, I just knew that it was going to be more healthy for me to just look at, I have to understand death before I can enjoy life.
That's good.
If everything has to die before it lives.
Everything.
You know, to me, you see
grass, the forest,
in the ground. Everything dies before it lives. So I had to know that I had to understand that death is a part of living.
Right.
And to be able to understand death, that was going to be the only way I can be able to enjoy life afterwards.
And for me, I've always been.
It's not going to be the same.
I was just going to say, for me, I've always been afraid of death. You know, so what happened this last year has now given me a better appreciation of death and to be less afraid of death. It was something that I never really wanted to deal with. But
I never seen it this close up. That was probably
never been
this
close.
For me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's close up. You know?
Yeah. It's never been this close. I mean, I had friends who lost parents, they lost siblings. I had never lost anyone this close to me before in my life, and it was difficult. I mean, I didn't even know what to say to those folks.
Yeah, right.
But now I can truly appreciate and understand what they've gone through because I've now gone through it. You know, but I also
said something earlier that made.
Go ahead.
You said something earlier that made me think is people don't know. They don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell people you know how they feel. No, you don't. You might have lost the same loved one, aunt, uncle, or whatever, but the feeling is different.
Yeah, the feeling is
you know, the best thing you could tell me is, "Hey, man, I'm here for you." That's all I need to know.
That's all I need to know. Exactly. That's the best thing you can say. That's it. You know, hey, call me when you want to talk. Call me when you want to do something.
Exactly.
And I mean, even if I called you and I said, "Hey, man, why don't you come over?" You know, and then let's just watch TV. We gotta talk.
I should tell him that.
Gotta talk.
Yeah. I don't want to be in the house by myself right now. We ain't got to talk. I just don't want to be in the house by myself. I want some company. I may not want to talk, but let's just watch TV. Have a couple of drinks or something. You know.
Yeah.
For
what about you, Quentin?
First of all, I just want to thank these men for being transparent as we continue to be transparent. I wanted to personally thank Lou because he knew I was coming to grieve with my sister at the end. You know, he knew I was coming to let go. She passed away 2 days after I left. And he would give me space and time to hold her hand, to read to her and pray and just feel her, touch her. Like when she reached out and she grabbed my hand, I knew she knew that I was there. Just so appreciative of that time because it gave me the ability to, understand, what was taking place. But the most important thing I would say in this whole process of what we're trying to accomplish is that as a man in America, our emphasis on minorities in America, especially emphasis around, African American men, because we struggle with it, seem more than most, is that I don't care if you've been in prison. I don't care if you haven't been a good father. I don't care how many mistakes you've made in your life. We need each other. We need each other's experiences.
Absolutely.
So I want to challenge every man under the sound of my voice, where you hear it now or later, no matter what ethnic group you're from, what background you're from, is that we got to come together as men. I hear that phrase, make America great again. Well, there's only one way to make America great. As African American men, as Latino men, as men, period, that we build relationships with, first of all, with ourselves and understand that process, and then with each other. I have friends all over the country. And one of the things that I learned from that process, I used to just have friends all over the country. I didn't have a lot of those friends here in Houston, Texas, or where I may live. But this process has taught me is that we need, as men, the physical, emotional touch of each other.
Yeah.
We need to hug each other. We need to have those conversations. We need to encourage each other. We need to support each other. The healing of our community, it starts with us. You know, the women in our community have, you know, you hear them talk about great women, you know, but so for so long it's been on that female to get it done. Not saying that I make a lot of mistakes. I'm gonna make a lot more, and my daughter continually make me aware of those mistakes. But I just want, and you just go find, you know, men that you trust and build those relationships. Because if you find men that you can connect to, that care about you, that show you that you can open up and you can be real, there's nothing more valuable than that as a man. It helps you to sustain you in all those other areas, because there's certain things about the way we're made that only we can relate to. We love the women in our lives, but there's certain things that we get that we don't even have to talk about. We just get it. So out of all this being said, guys, the whole purpose of this is, you know, centered around the loss of loved ones in your life, and want to send out encouragement. But the thing that I want to send out more than anything else is, let's start building relationships, meaningful relationships, having real talk, real conversations about, you know, about life. Lou said, you know, Lee, when I was talking about it, he said, Lou, he said, no, Q, this is just life.
Yeah.
This is just life. We have to learn how to deal with life in the right way. And we don't always do that.
Absolutely. Well, today has been super awesome. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to share, to listen, to learn from a man's perspective. I believe, and I hope and pray that this opens up doors. God's opened up doors for you guys to help heal other men, to be able to come forth and say some of the things that they are internally battling with. And for those who are, you know, they don't have any hope because of their situation, whether it be grief, whether it be, again, the loss of anything, or them just being in a state of depression about some things, that you guys have given them hope to say that you can go beyond the moment and life does go on. And then, as Lou said, you know, there has to be death before there is life. So some things may have to die, whether it's physical, maybe whether it's internal, whether it's insecurity, whatever the case may be, maybe it's anger, whatever the case may be. In order for you to get beyond those moments, you have to let that die. And so I hope and pray that whoever is watching this now, or if they're watching it later on, that they say to themselves that they are not going to take some things into 2023, or they're going to build upon and build a more mental health. Quentin has several ways with his insurance company to be able to be beneficial to you in that mental health stage. So you definitely can follow all of the social media platforms. Simple Choice Insurance is Simple Choice IB on all of our social media platforms to be able to see what's happening. Definitely got to put in the plug for Simple Choice.
That's right.
And I'm grateful. I know that we're going to have another conversation to where we'll move beyond this moment and talk about some of the things that you guys still have to deal with, and maybe even have a conversation with just healing, period, just going through the healing process, period. But I've truly enjoyed today. Is there anything that you want to close out with, Mr. Jenkins?
No, just find a brother if you find another man to build a relationship with. I mean, I keep saying that because when we learn how to love each other, build a relationship with each other, it's going to help us be better men in loving and learning from and experiencing life with the women that are important in our lives.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. You all have a happy new year. If you watch this early or tomorrow, you have a happy new year, happy new year too, whatever the case may be. Whenever you watch it, we pray that you have an amazing 2023. And you guys continue to be blessed. And we'll see you on the next show of Real Men, Black Men Real Talk.
Black Men Real Talk. All
right. Looking forward to next year. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Y'all be blessed.